Good morning, hope all is well with you. With Yom Kippur behind us, the Jewish community now turns its attention to the festival of Sukkot. Perhaps you can see behind me the sukkah that I built before Yom Kippur started. It's not quite complete yet, but it's the basis of where we will be sitting, hopefully, for our meals and to hang out during the festival of Sukkot. Why do we build it? Why 21st century Jews building a hut? So obviously we can say that it's tradition. Tradition is important in most people's religious communities, and these values that we transmit from generation to generation, remembering the stories that created and shaped our history and our people and the ideology that goes with it. So the Jewish people came out of slavery in Egypt, and they lived in these temporary dwelling places on their way to the promised land. Yes, it took 40 years, but during that time they needed shelter, they needed protection, and for us to remember that there are people in the world that need that blessing in their life too, that their world is fragile and they also need to be protected and to be looked after, that life doesn't always give us the security that we wish, and that is symbolized in the flimsy, fragile hut that is behind me. So year after year, Jewish people sit in our sukkahs remembering how our ancestors traveled, that we didn't always have a land and we didn't always have security and we didn't always have protection, and both putting our faith in God and also putting our faith in ourselves and in our community, that we can come together and protect ourselves and protect the most vulnerable people in our community, and never to forget that message that there are people in the world that need protecting. And if we are remembering how fragile life can be and that we need help, then surely if that's the value that we are trying to connect with, then we have to demonstrate that in our relationships and with people that we know, keeping our eyes open to see who needs help. It's not always obvious who the people are that really could do with supporting, that could do with nurturing and protecting. It's a very special part of Jewish life, because normally we think of mitzvot, commandments that involve parts of our body. When Jewish men and boys wear the tefillin, so you put it on your arm, you put it on your head. If I'm wearing a kippah, it's on my head. When we use our hands to strike a match to light the candles for Shabbat, then we're just using our hands to do a mitzvah. When we're lifting someone off the ground or giving charity, again, it's individual parts of our body. But the mitzvah of Sukkah actually includes all our body. All of us enters the hut. All of us is engaged and part of that community. So that's idea number one today. People need protecting, and when you're going to do so, do it with every fiber of your being, even if it puts you out, even if it interrupts your delight and your pleasure and your free time. Live the values that our religion and tradition transmits generation after generation. Thought number two, an amazing man, Chuck Feeney. Chuck Feeney is was a very wealthy man. He has just donated almost, wait for it, $9 billion. That's £7 billion. That's a lot of money. Motivated by the idea, listen carefully, to die rich is to die disgraced. You can't take it with you. So when you've got the things in your life that demonstrate your success, do something with it. Pay it forward. Don't just gather things together. And that is the second message of the hut behind me and the festival of Sukkot. You see, the festival of Sukkot, when we lived on the land, when we lived in an agricultural society, would have coincided with the time in the year when the farmers would have gathered in all their crops from the field, sat back and thought, I've made it. Look what I've produced this year. I've got money. I'm rich. I can do it. So we go outside and we leave it all behind, and we remind ourselves that you can't take it with you. And the real benefit to wealth is not that you've got it, but what you can do with it. We've got to build a much more compassionate society, not one where we're all out to get each other, but where we use the blessings in our lives to help other people. Chuck recognizes that he can't take his money with him, and he had an ambition that before he would leave this world, he would give away his fortune, and he's been blessed to live a very long time, to amass a huge amount of money, and he's given away almost £7 billion. He now lives in a 2-bed apartment with his wife, happy in the knowledge that the blessings he had have now been paid forward, and it's now the responsibility of those who received his money to do something brilliant with it, to save lives, to make other people's lives easier, and then hopefully to pay that forward as well in a never-ending cycle, so that one person's initial blessings can just flow through community after community having an impact. We have a tradition on Sukkot. We invite guests into our world as well. These spiritual guests, our ancestors, we don't really believe there's someone physically, they're obviously not. But we invite Abraham, Yitzchak and Yaakov, Moshe and Aaron, King David and Joseph into our world. Even when you're fragile, even when you're living in a temporary accommodation, there's always the scope to do something kind. There's always the scope to be kind no matter what your situation is. So if life is tough, if life is a struggle for you right now, there's no excuse. You can still do an act of kindness. You can still invite someone over into your life. Perhaps not face to face anymore, but you can pick up the phone. In a couple of days' time, we break up from school. What is that holiday going to look like? Are people going to be ignored for the time we're off school? Or are you going to be that sociable person that picks up the phone or sends a message and reminds your classmates that they matter? And let's use the inspiration of the hut behind me, of the sukkah behind me, to focus on what makes our tradition so beautiful. Invite people into your lives. Do acts of kindness. Pass on the blessings, and in that way we will succeed in transmitting our heritage further and further and enriching the lives of people all over the world. Have a great day and take care of yourself.